Welcome back to Asset KUPWARA. Here we are continuing with lecture 8 of the chapter Why Do We Fall Ill? We were discussing innate immunity. Innate immunity is that type of immunity that's present in us from the birth. For example, when we are inside the womb of our mother, when we are in the fetal life, intrauterine life, we get some antibodies there. Antibodies, I have already told you, that are those molecules that defend our body against these antigens, against any foreign pathogen, and we get some antibodies from the mother, and after the birth we get antibodies from the colostrum, the first milk of the mother, that's rich in antibodies. That's why doctors advise parents to to provide only milk for first 6 months to the baby, because that's rich in all types of antibodies, and that boosts up the immune system of the baby newborn. And next point in this immunity, you will remember, it has the general effect. General effect means it has same effect on viruses, same effect on bacteria, same effect on protozoan, same effect on fungi. The major barriers that act in the this innate immunity that protect our body from the pathogens are skin, mucous membrane, cellular barriers like WBCs, white blood cells, and by their phagocytic action. There are inflammatory responses, there is fever, there is pus. I will explain them all. First, skin, you have seen that skin acts as a barrier for various substances. If a pathogen intends to affect our body, it has to cross the skin first. Skin has various glands, it has various secretions in it, and it doesn't allow various pathogens to get entry to our body. This was the first line of defense. And the second is mucous membrane. Our organs are internally lined by mucous membranes. For example, our respiratory tract is there. When any foreign substance gets into our respiratory tract, that's also lined by mucous membrane on the interior side, and we suddenly sneeze whenever any foreign pathogen gets into our respiratory tract. That are the mucous membranes. They entrap these pathogens and throw them out of the body. This was the second defense. They defend our body from these. Now the cellular pathogen, and now the cellular barriers, WBCs, white blood cells. You have heard this term, WBCs, and phagocytic cells have the phagocytic action. I will explain what phagocytic action is. These WBCs and phagocytes, what they does, they kill the pathogen by eating it. They kill the pathogen by eating the pathogen. When any pathogen enters our body, and these phagocytes surround that. When this is, for example, this is the pathogen, it enters our body. This pathogen has entered the body. What does this phagocytic cell does? It surrounds this pathogen and engulfs it, surrounds it and engulfs it and degrades it. And what it does, it digests it so that it cannot affect our body. That is the function of the phagocytic cells and WBCs. Then the second one, inflammation, I will discuss. First, I will take care the fever, because that's related to this one, these phagocytic cells. What fever is? Fever is the rise in overall temperature, average temperature of our body. For example, we have 37 degrees Celsius of the average temperature. When our body temperature is above this 37 degree, that's called as high fever. Now, how this fever, this rise in temperature occurs in our body? It occurs by an endogenous pyrogen. Endogenous pyrogen is the agent that is responsible for the rise of our body temperature. Now, where from this endogenous pyrogen come? When this macrophage engulfs this antigen, this foreign agent, which intended to cause any harm to our body, but it has been now engulfed by this phagocytic cell. There are different types of phagocytic cells. One of them is here drawn, which engulfs this pathogen, and upon engulfing this, it acts on it and degrades it. It breaks this molecule so that it cannot affect us, and in turn this phagocytic cell releases some chemical that's called as endogenous pyrogen. And this endogenous pyrogen, what it does, it increases our average body temperature. Now the inflammatory response, whenever you see that our body has been bitten by any mosquito or anything, we get a cut on our body, that portion of our skin gets inflamed and reddened. Why that redness occurs and why that inflammation occurs? Inflammation actually is a positive response of our body. Immune system generates a response whenever a tissue is, you will understand here, it is the concept of pus and inflammation, because pus is formed after the inflammatory response. When a pathogen enters, this is the tissue lining, this is the lining of our tissues, this is the lining of our tissue. When a pathogen gets entry into our body, what happens there, this pathogen releases some toxic substances. These toxic substances kill the cells in our body, kill some cells. Now there are other phagocytes which are living. They come across from other tissues to defend these cells, and what they does, they form a barrier between, they surround these pathogen toxin. The pathogen has released a toxin, and that has killed these cells. What does these phagocytes did? These living phagocytes surround these dead cells and the pathogenic toxin and neutralize them. They does not give them entry to the other tissue parts, and they defend the tissues from degeneration. And this accumulation of this dead cell and pathogen forms the pus, that's called as pus. And this tissue becomes inflamed because the circulation because the blood supply towards this tissue is increased. The blood vessels along this area are dilated so that blood flows more and more towards this area. That's why we get redness. When infection is there, we get redness and we get inflammation. These are actually the responses of our immune system towards this area, towards this pathogen. And these cells, these phagocytes, neutralize this pathogen and protect our body from further damage. This was the whole concept about innate immunity. First we discussed immunity, two types: innate, adaptive. Innate, present from birth, from mother to fetus in the form of antibodies and the colostrum after the birth, that's the first milk, and it has general effects. And the barriers of this are the first line barriers being skin, mucous membranes, cellular barriers being WBCs, phagocytic action I have discussed here, and inflammatory responses I have discussed in this, and fever I have discussed. Pus cells, hope you have understood. Actually this pus is that accumulation. This is the accumulation of these dead cells and pathogen. And redness and inflammation, these are all the responses of our immune system. These are the protective reflexes of our immune system to protect our body. Hope you have understood. And adaptive immunity we will discuss in the next class. Class dismissed.